So in this video I'm going to give an introduction to the Ansible AWX server that we use for deploying Ansible playbooks onto the Adoptium infrastructure. So this is a quick view of the main page you get when you log in, and there's various different jobs that you can run. The sections on the left contain some of the interesting categories. First we'll look at the projects one. The projects is pretty much, in our case, there's one project for each repository that you pull things from, and the main one in our case is the Adoptium/infrastructure project, which is here. That obviously points to that particular Git URL, and that's where our inventory is stored and the playbooks as well. Now, if you modify the inventory, you have to refresh that to pull up the latest version of the inventory file. And also the inventory here is defined as a dynamic inventory from GitHub. It has all the hosts in it there, and that's pulled from the inventory.xml. The source is this dynamic inventory source, and that is pulled from the project Adoptium/infrastructure that I showed you before. It makes use of this YAML file, YAML Python file, to parse the inventory file into a format that AWX can use. And so, yeah, once you update the project, you also have to start the sync process to actually run that Python script, and it will sync up the inventory with the live version. The templates is the other important thing. Templates, it always seems like a slightly strange name, but the different jobs that actually do the deployment of the playbooks are called templates. So we have one for the different operating systems here. So one for AIX, one for macOS, one for the Unix systems, because they all have slightly different parameters they need as input. Obviously the macOS and the Unix ones are fundamentally the same playbooks, but yeah, there's slightly different parameters that are set up. In the case of Windows, it's slightly different from the other ones because it connects to the servers in a way that requires a password. So it will prompt you for the password when you initially connect to the machine. The Unix ones don't do that. So in terms of actually deploying a playbook, when you start to run it, you use that little rocket ship icon, which you do for most of the things in the interface here. So you can limit it, you can use wildcard, you can use a comma separated list, you can use a combination of both, as it says here. One of the new machines that I'm doing is one of these, so I can do that. I'm also, because there's a slight problem with Docker on that platform at the moment, which we're looking at, I'm going to skip that particular entry. So if I then click next, and that's just saying it'll connect in as root, which is as normal, just a quick summary of what it's going to do, and then click launch. At this point it will switch to this screen, which will start running through the playbook and executing all the commands that are in it, and you'll be able to see, well, if you had multiple machines that we're using, they would come up in parallel as it ran through that. In fact, you see there's 4 different machines that it's running on, running the playbook in parallel on. The other thing to note is if I kick on this screen here, back to here, the pulsing green one shows you what is actually in progress at the moment. If I click one of these, it would show you the historic log for whichever the parameters were that I ran the previous one time. So if I click that, it will go back to the same screen again. The reason you can see some debug jobs here, now the reason for that is if you want to test its playbook deployment using a fork of the infrastructure code. For example, if you want to verify your PR against a particular machine, you can do that with the interface, but it requires just a little bit of work. You would need to have an alternate project which pulled the playbooks and everything from something that wasn't Adoptium/infrastructure, it'd be from a fork of that. You can use this button here to copy. So we've got this one that is a copy of Adoptium infrastructure. I could change that to my personal one, Adoptium/infrastructure, and change the URL and so on, and then I can save that, and there you go. So that would be saved as a project, and I could then import that, rerun the spinny thing there, and that would sync it up and be able to use it. Once I'd got a new project for that, I would, again, because the deploy playbook has the project listed in it, I would need to change that to SXA/infrastructure. Again, the alternative would be to take the deploy Unix playbook, make a copy of it, edit the name so it's something a little bit more obvious, deploy SSA branch playbook, and then change that to SSA/infrastructure, and I can save that. I can also change some of the defaults if I so desire, so you can change the tags that are skipped by default. That will actually prompt you so you can change them automatically, or if you'll just stick with those two. As you saw on the previous deployment, I added Docker to that, and I wouldn't be able to do that if it didn't say prompt on launch. The limit, you can either have that prompt on launch, or it will just automatically kick off on a particular set of machines. That's the playbook, which is the thing that's different between the Unix, Windows, and AIX playbooks, because we start from a different place in the tree. So you can see that one is Ansible playbooks, .openjdk Unix playbook /main.yaml. And yep, so I can save that. Yep, I think that's about it. So that shows you how to, if you want to create your own branch that you can run from. I'm going to get rid of those now because they're not particularly useful and they just clog up the system generally. So you don't want to leave those lying around unless you really have to. So yeah, that's a quick overview of how to run the Ansible playbooks from AWX. That should work across all of the systems we have. And that seems to be going along quite nicely. It's just deploying along, and yeah, the output you can see there is exactly the same as you would see on the if you're running it from the command line or something like that. So hopefully that's a quick overview of how the AWX server works and how to deploy to machines using it. Thanks. Bye.